Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel, and today we are doing a strength build with an outer patina of poison. So it's a strength build featuring poison, and there's lots of ways you could have done this smarter than I did. For one, I'd probably have a duplicate of every weapon you like to have on your build, one as a poison flavor and one as a heavy flavor. And if you can get good at those swaps, you could poison your foe and then switch to the heavy variant for the bigger damage, and then switch back to the poison should you need to reapply it, or something along those lines. If you're too lazy or too inept to be able to do those swaps, you can leave it on poison. That's just fine. The damage was satisfactory for me, and I had a good time with this build. I really liked having poison as an option, or rather as a feature, on just about everything I did. Because I tend to play a little earlier in the day, I get off work earlier than most North Americans, I tend to find myself playing with our European brothers across the pond. A natural consequence of this vast distance is, of course, latency. Sometimes it's fine, other times it's miserable. It's just gonna happen, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. However, poison gives you something in your back pocket. When you poison somebody, the pressure is on, even when you're not making hits. Those ghost hits are counting towards a little something. And of course, when you're using the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation Talisman along with the Mushroom Crown, every time you or someone near you gets poisoned, you get a nice little damage buff for about 20 or so seconds. And since it's really easy to reapply it with a whole kit being poison, you have that fairly often, even if you are whiffing your hits, so to speak. And I like having it on a strength build. You don't even need Arcane. You could probably strip the Arcane from this build, have Vagabond be your base class even if you so choose, and you can still do quite well. I decided to run with a little bit of Arcane because I liked having the Mogwin Sacred Sphere in my back pocket. If you want to be a little more of a purist and not have any bleed option or just go pure poison and strength, then you can pump those points somewhere else, and that's a good amount of points you can throw somewhere. It's like 17 points or some such. So do with that information what you will. On screen now is unfortunately a little incident that I like to call a poise moment, and look at this poor fellow. My repeated one-handed hits with the light rapier, because he has such low poise, are able to stop him over and over and over again. And it feels bad. So that's one thing you can kind of keep an eye on as you are fighting your fellow players in this Elden Ring of ours. How much armor does it look like they're wearing? They look like they're almost stark naked. You could probably bully them with a lightweight weapon. So that's a thing you can do. Here's a thought for you. I find it really funny that the best poison builds seem to be dex builds or strength builds that just have poison as a feature on them. It's really funny to me because they have this whole Arcane stat, which, don't get me wrong, having a good amount of Arcane will make your bleed build really punchy, but poison doesn't really need it. It's not like your poison ticks harder or lasts longer if you have a big Arcane stat. You can just apply it a little easier. So if the application is a difference of, say, a hit, depending on whether you do or don't have an Arcane stat, it almost seems like an optimal choice to have your damage placed elsewhere, or your points placed elsewhere for damage. As an example, I've seen people run the Crystallian Rot Spear in their offhand and then the Cross Naga Nada in their main hand, and they just keen infuse the Cross Naga Nada and they slap poison grease on it, and then bada bing bada boom, both their twin spears stab and thrust and deal rot, and that's their poison build. They'll have the crown on, they'll have the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation on it. Anytime they rot, they get that big damage bonus. It's a pretty simple way to run it, and it works pretty well. It takes a little bit of int, sure, but you save a lot of points on Arcane, and you're applying rot while doing big heaps of damage, most of it piercing damage, meaning you can get counter hits, and then you're getting those damage buffs. And of course, if somebody's rotted, they are taking down HP rather fast compared to your normal varieties of poisons that folks may have. I love that. I love the stupid little iron cleaver on this guy. I remember seeing a video a while ago, and it somebody was using halberd offhand, cleaver main hand, and it's not the optimal setup For invasions, it's a pretty good dueling setup because you have a ranged poke that has a good amount of posture damage, and then you have the cleaver to kind of bully people up close. And with Storm Stomp, you can just kind of control people who might try to roll or strafe your halberd. So, I like it. It's not particularly great, but I like it, and that's all that really matters to me. And this poor wizard, I take out his phantom, I somehow predict the latency issue we were having, and I'm able to get him. And this poor host, look at his HP, Kablamzo. Oh my gosh. Please level Vigor. Nothing feels worse than when you die in 2 or 3 small hits in a situation where it is absolutely and completely avoidable. Vigor is the saving grace of every single build I make. Even if I am horrible, at least I get to make a few more mistakes than the other guy. My goodness, I completely forgot. Happy Thanksgiving. Late, I know. Took me a couple more days to make a video than normal because I had to travel for Thanksgiving. Had to drive many hours out of the way to and from, but that's the joy of visiting family when they live remotely. But all in all, good Thanksgiving. Turns out my green bean casserole was a smash hit. The darndest things you hear in my silly rants and ramblings. You know what's better than a killer green bean casserole for Thanksgiving? A fried turkey. You ever fry a turkey? It's not easy to do. It's a little dangerous. Takes a whole heck of a lot of oil, but still, I like turkey well enough. It's a fine meat. There's meats I prefer more often than it, or crave, I should say. But fried turkey? Ooh, keep me up at night with cold chills. The delightful kind. Everybody should try fried turkey at least once in their life, I should say. I still have fond memories of dipping the turkey in a big vat of peanut oil, and what we did is we used a basketball hoop attached to our property. We tied the turkey to the hoop so that we could have a crane mechanism to lower it safely into the oil. And it's funny to me because we never used that basketball hoop for anything. Nobody really played basketball in my family growing up. And so that's what we used it for. We used it for deep frying a turkey one year, and we didn't use it that way since. But, oh, this guy cracks me up. He just decided to face trade me, and I realized I had the numbers, so I thought I'd trade him back because I was feeling goofy. I thought it would be a silly thing to do. He wants to trade? We'll trade. Look at this mirror. Kablamzo. So we poison each other, we're getting the hits in, and I'm winning. You know, he gets in some good hits back, almost wins back, but then I win, and he sends me hate mail. He gets upset. He claims that my internet is to blame for his face trading. Can you believe that? Oh man, they let anyone on the internet these days. There's no test to get in. You just hand some ISP some money and they say have at 'em, Tiger. As long as you're not like a wanted terrorist or something, you're just pretty much free to do whatever you like. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be free to do what he likes. I'm just saying I should lower my standards a little bit when it comes to online interactions. I laugh, and don't bully that guy. Don't do anything stupid. Just ignore him. That's all they deserve at the end of the day. If they're going to face trade and blame the internet's not to blame when both parties aren't dodging each other. Oh man, use latent for me too. I think people forget it goes both ways. And that's the thing that I usually forget, is it's very easy to think about latency when you're, getting into these fights in Elden Ring. You see somebody as high ping, or you throw a knife or whatever, you test their ping yourself, their latency, and you go, oh, they have the bad ping. And that's usually the way we phrase it for ease, but in reality, you usually have a bad connection to each other. Now, there are, of course, notable exceptions. It's just hard to know if those exceptions are reality or if it's just your speculations, your wild postulates. Because somebody could be playing off of really low quality internet and over Wi-Fi, and the modem or the router could be on the other side of the house or through several walls. Who knows? Anything could be happening to make the connection extra garbage. but I assume the average person who likes to enjoy their video games, especially on PC, is going to try their darndest to have a wired connection if they can. But that's just my outlook on the world, and could very well not be a reality when it comes down to it. Which is the scariest thought of them all, knowing that there are these internet gremlins that, like raccoons, will just eat anything, trash included, just veritable garbage, and that could be their approach to the internet. Any connection is a connection, and they'll just use it no matter the quality. How do they live like this? How do they game? How could you just live with yourself? I don't know whether I should hate them or pity them, to be frank. Could go either way at this point. My gut instinct tells me that pity is the thing that they deserve, but only briefly, and then to be swiftly ignored, like most negative interactions on the internet. Like one who wishes to deal with internet trolls, not feeding them, positively or negatively, is the best thing you can do. Because they thrive off of attention of any kind. Giving them nothing at all will usually work. But don't tell them you're ignoring them. That's stupid. That's negative. That's negative feedback, and they're fine with that. Don't do that either. They just need to be blissfully unaware of your intents or feelings on the matter. Give them absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing, like genuine, void, beyond the stars and matter sort of nothing. In other words, my call to action, or rather my call to inaction, is for you to be better than I. Don't respond to them. It's not worth your time. Oh, this was a neat little interaction. So there is an illusory wall. See that? I ran into it. If you didn't see it, run it back. I ran into the illusory wall and was waiting for them to come forward, and then they dispel the illusion just to get bonked on the head by a fully charged braggart sword. And that was a lot of fun. Also, I didn't know this. If you hit them early enough, somebody using the Hand of Melania while they're rising into the air, it'll just knock them out of the air. I thought they had almost frame 1 hyper armor or some nonsense. So that's pretty neat. Good to know. If you got a big chunky weapon or something that does a hilarious amount of poise damage, you can knock them out of the air. Now that is very risky. There's way too easy to get just blendered by that ability, so pace yourself. And if you think you have an easy in, I guess you can go for it. However, if you have that easy in, you likely have the means to just outspace the attack and choose a new avenue to counterattack. Hand of Melania is very scary in most recent patch. Oh, this was a fun little interaction. I ran into this guy a few times. I think I had one of his clips near the beginning of the video, and he was just, praying to that tall albinuric woman, big lady, I suppose. And we had a fun little second duel where I actually land a fully charged braggart's roar, which is funny because I did a roar video recently, and the damage was just very funny to me. Imagine if I had gotten the poison buff first before trying to go for that. Oh my goodness, but the damage is still very nice. I like having poison buff on my strength build. It's very, very tasty. Another thing this build can do, and you can do on lots of other builds, it doesn't require this build to do, is utilizing rot grease on a heavy infused weapon or any standard physical infusion, right? So you can slather it in rot and you can try to make a lot of hits, and that is an avenue to poisoning somebody, and then of course you get the buff once you do poison them. Rot grease on a Shamshir gives you an opportunity to swing very fast. The back swings are very good. I am awful with the Shamshir. It took me way too long to get even some reasonable footage of some Shamshir gameplay. Others make it look easy. They know exactly what they're doing. I am dreadful with a Shamshir. That means I need to practice more. But sometimes you get these little instances like what's about to happen where you're able to just keep swinging and the back swings keep them guessing, and it's all over. And if they don't outright die from something like that, they're rotted. And rot is, of course, stronger poison. You get your damage bonus from your equipment. Heck, even if you're running just a normal dex build or a normal strength build without all the extra poison fixins, poisoning somebody's still very nice and a very good option. And we're going to close out our invasions today with this last but long-winded encounter with this fellow right here. If I had a negative interaction with that man who would not stop face trading with me and decided to send me hate mail as a consequence, this guy was the polar opposite. His Steam name was like High-Powered Glue Sniffer, which is a good chuckle and a half. That's a very good name. High-Powered Glue Sniffer, very good username. Best of the best, honestly. And he has this really funny idea where he makes you fight him on the slow-moving lava, and he's trying to get you with that 4-hit combo that comes with the Raptor Claws. Now, there are a few caveats if you want to try something like this. First, if you want the 4-hit combo, you have to poise break in the first 2 hits of the attack string, right? If you're not poise breaking them, then they can either escape or they can counter hit you. Now, a lot of people will offset this by using endure so that they just get the hits anyway, and that's just trading, right? But if you want the 4-hit combo, the R2 into R2, then you gotta break their posture. And I was using bigger weapons, which meant I had some poise, a little bit of armor, and so I'm able to negate a lot of what he's trying. But because we're moving so darn slowly, and I was still trying to assess the situation, figure out what the best course of action is, I then realize, it dawns on me, I'm like, oh, I can double poison this guy. I can use Bloodhound Step, and I will have the mobility advantage. I'll be able to get in and out. I can poison him. I can harass him. I didn't realize it until post, but people who are hanging out in lava are taking fire damage, which means every time I threw a frost pot at this guy, it just did the proc, and you could throw another frost pot and it would do the proc again. Now, they wouldn't take bonus damage, of course, because it deletes the status effect. However, they're available to take the damage from the frost proc going off. So somebody who's standing in fire means frost pots become normal damage pots. Or a very weird way of doing magic damage pots. And I don't know, this invasion looks like it would be a chore, looks like it would be laborious and kind of miserable. I had a blast fighting this guy here. It reminds me of an invasion I had a long while ago where I had to fight somebody under the jumping mausoleum and worry about it landing over and over, causing shockwaves. It felt like a fight that had an excellent set piece. Very memorable, and that's why I wanted to close out on this one. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you had a Thanksgiving that was wonderful. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I just hope you had a great week. And I hope you show up for the next one. Take care now.